The first 6 or 8 months were horrendous.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I quit almost every day for the first 6
Yeah.
months. I cried myself to sleep. We're trying to produce really good investment returns for people over a long period of time. A real kind of emphasis on protecting the capital, generating good revenue streams, and then really being the client's trusted advisor as well. It's incumbent upon us to work really hard to find good investment opportunities. And we still do the planning, we still make sure all the right money is in all the right buckets, and we still, make sure super contributions are done and pensions are paid.
How do you define success?
Oh, look, I think from a personal point of view, success is...
Private markets investments are investors can find some real value. I find the best way to learn is learn from someone who's done it before and given it a go. Hi, I'm Travis Miller, host of Grow Your Wealth podcast. Thanks for joining me here today. On these podcast sessions, we're going to talk through how certain investors have navigated the bumpy road of investing, whether it be through business or investments in general. Thanks for listening today. Welcome to another episode of Grow Your Wealth podcast. We'll explore the strategies and stories of financial success. I'm your host, Travis Miller, and today we're joined by special guest Charlie Viola. Charlie is known for his exceptional ability to protect and grow the wealth of high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals. His journey began in 2003 with a modest portfolio, a phone book, and a simple yet powerful philosophy. Do the right thing by the clients and the rest will follow. This approach has been the cornerstone of his success. In today's episode, we'll dive into Charlie's unique approach to wealth management, explore his strategies for investment, planning, and achieving long-term goals. Whether you're an established investor or just beginning to navigate the world of wealth management, Charlie's insights are bound to be invaluable. So tune in and get ready to elevate your financial knowledge with Charlie Viola on Grow Your Wealth podcast. Welcome, Charlie. Appreciate you coming along.
Thanks, Travis. How are you, mate?
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you. How about we just start at the beginning? Can you give us a potted summary background of who you are, what you're currently doing at Pitcher Partners, and just sort of something to give the listeners a bit of background?
Yeah, sure. So as you sort of put in the intro there, we're a high net wealth, ultra high net wealth private client business. We manage about 3.6 bill of client monies, which is a lot of other people's money.
Sure.
Really just focusing on really a couple of things. One, we are investment guys. So we're trying to produce really good investment returns for people over a long period of time. A real kind of emphasis on protecting the capital, generating good revenue streams, and then really being the client's trusted advisor as well. So people's lives are bigger than their bank balance. They've got kids and want to lend money to kids and estate planning and all of those sorts of things. So we like to get nice and close to the client, really understand them. And then, there's no false economy in what we do. We absolutely know we need to produce good investment outcomes, which we work really hard to do. So, I personally wear two hats in the business. I'm the managing director of the business, so kind of in charge of strategy and maybe making the final decisions. But my main role, and the bit probably I enjoy most, is I'm an advisor. So I enjoy it. I like it. I like the mental stimulus that it provides. I'm a bit of an investment nuffy at different times.
Yeah,
so I like looking for different investment opportunities. And ultimately, I like kind of being part of the clients' lives and knowing what turns them on and whatever else. So,
Gotcha. I mean, I think that point you make about working hard, is critical, right? Because I know Rob Nankervell, my colleague, quite well, and it's like the advisor's prepared to put in the time and effort to understand what's available, right? Because there's a turnkey form of advice, and then there's a work hard form of advice, and you need to be sort of a bit intellectually curious. What other products are out there? What can I learn? What might my investors be interested in? And that's kind of where that alternative assets potentially come into things. Is they're not on the shelf. You need to look around, and that does require some work for sort of advisors like yourself. And I know you're quite active in thinking in that space.
Yeah, I've probably made this point many times on kind of lots of forums. I think it's incumbent upon us to work really hard to find good investment opportunities. I think it's incumbent upon us to ensure we produce good investment outcomes by finding, opportunities that other people can't find. And it's incumbent on us to protect the client's wealth over a period of time and make sure, I think that in reality, if since 2009 all you did was buy CBA and BHP shares, because markets did nothing but go up and we had emergency low interest rates, you probably did okay.
Yeah.
But, we think it's incumbent upon us to work hard to make sure that we're not having all of the clients' money be presented with the same risk, and we're not generating all the return in all of the same way. So, we absolutely put ourselves in that bucket. We do a lot of private assets. We do a lot of what are sometimes called alternatives.
Yep.
I think that's a dumb word because, I think sometimes you say alternative and people think you're going to put them into a Guatemalan coal mine or something.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not. You're just going to put them in normal assets, which perhaps have a bit of a liquidity premium attached to them. So,
yeah, for sure. Interesting. Now, something that a lot of our listeners quite like is understanding your background, where you come from, so the personal side of being an advisor. Do you want to just take us through initially your education and then step through some of your early career path?
Yeah. I don't know, I think mine was probably the School of Hard Knocks, as opposed to I think you kind of find advisors these days who have a specific university course and specific courses that they go through to get themselves to kind of that advisory job, and I think the world has really changed probably for the better from when I was kind of coming through.
Yep.
But no, I started life as a bank teller in Picton, which is like a little kind of rural suburb just kind of south of where I grew up in Camden. Started for CBA back in, I think, 1996 or 1997, just after I finished school. Worked out probably pretty early on that I was a reasonably good talker. And, started what was effectively called on-selling, and they probably saw someone who could, build rapport with people and have conversations. Over a couple of years, I kind of worked my way through a couple of, customer service jobs at CBA. Was provided with like a deposit taking role at CBA.
Gotcha.
I moved to the big city, which was, would have to get up at 5 o'clock every day and go to Campbelltown Station and catch the cold train on the way into town. Working at CBA, very young, so it was like 1998. So wasn't quite 20. Was given like a junior advice role, which really was kind of risk profiling people and trying to tip people into the bank's for managed funds.
Yeah, for sure.
I did that for a little while, probably started to do reasonably well at it. Got a senior role by 2000, so I was only kind of 21 at the time. Probably started to win a few awards and a few kind of business written awards at CBA. Thought I was king of the castle, thought I was too smart for them, and thought, well, I really want to kind of have a crack at doing this outside the bank.
Yep.
I probably, from an education point of view, the bank kind of paid for a lot of my education through that period. As soon as I was qualified, I was ready to leave, which I'm not sure that was the model. Not sure that was the model they were going for, but so in 2003, I probably got serious about wanting to leave and wanting to go out and do it, and perhaps wanting to be more than just kind of a distribution person for the bank's products.
Yeah, for sure.
The bank by then had just bought Colonial First State. So, it was made known to me by kind of the advice manager at the time, you're a distribution center for the bank's products, and that's what we kind of need you to do. So I moved on, and I went out and effectively got the job that I've got now. So, the business was called Moore Stevens at the time. It was a small chartered accounting firm. It had 4 partners and about 40 staff, and a very embryonic kind of wealth management practice at the time. What I worked out pretty clearly is the bank is a bit like the zoo, where you're protected, you're told you're king of the castle, and they just keep throwing food over the fence to you, and you keep getting fed, and you don't realise how difficult it is. Whereas coming out into the real world was a bit like the jungle, where the protections are removed, the parameters are removed, and you're on your own. So I turned up to a business that really had no processes, no systems, no infrastructure, hardly a piece of paper, and more importantly, no clients, no revenue. So, I probably, using a bunch of the stuff that I'd learnt at CBA in terms of what documents needed to look like and what processes, built some processes, but then I needed to find clients, and we just didn't have any, right? So quite literally started ringing people out of the phone book to do that. So started trying to find centers of influence, people that could actually send me work. With a little bit of traction, it started to work, and we sit here kind of 20 years later with almost $4 billion of assets under management and a fantastic high net wealth private client business. But the first 6 or 8 months were horrendous. Like,
for sure.
I think I quit almost every day for the first 6 months. I cried myself to sleep, and if it probably wasn't for the support network that I had at the time, and my girlfriend and whatever at the time, I absolutely would have quit, but stuck at it. Realised that I probably was okay at this stuff, but it just gave me the sense that the client relationship is super important. Like, for 2 reasons. One, we look after their life savings, and we have to be kind of acutely aware of that. And secondly, when you've got no clients, you tend to overservice the ones that you've got.
Yeah.
And what I realised is that's how you build genuine rapport. And that's what I've probably carried through my whole career. And what I try and counsel others on is you coined it before, you do the right thing by the client, and absolutely the rest will sort of follow.
Hey, if you're enjoying this, please subscribe on whatever platform you're using. It helps us build a community. We want to educate investors, and this is what it's all about. It's interesting having started a business as well. I was at UBS. You ring up, say it's Travis from UBS. Pretty much everyone says, yeah, fine, let's have a chat. You ring up and say it's Travis from my partners. In the first 6 months, I go, who are you? You're like, what's your business? But it takes effort, right? Like, that's how you built nearly a $4 billion business. It's probably the first few months of making those phone calls, because that's how that's how it develops, right? And so it's impressive to have got to where you've got to across that journey, and you can clearly talk. You can clearly work hard, and you can talk, and you're obviously providing a good service. Pretty simple things, right? Hey, if we go back to, it might be how you got your first job as a teller, I'm not sure, but who are the top 3 people who have influenced you the most during your career, or even just during your life, and why?
In my life, like, it depends on how far you kind of want to go back, I suppose. But I think probably the first person, and again a long time ago, was I had an English teacher in year 11 and 12, Mrs. Chen. I remember her just breaking the mold in terms of what high school, especially at an all boys school that I went to at Greg's at Campbelltown. She just had a view that have independent thought. So absolutely listen to other people's thoughts, but make your own opinion and have your own view on things. And it really kind of resonated with me, and it really stuck with me. And she always had a view like read, think, and then act. And it kind of resonated with me. And, I finished school 27 years ago or whatever, and it's kind of stuck with me. So
that's good.
Secondly, I'm a bit of a sports nuffy, love sport. Growing up, I'm a massive cricket fan. And I remember, and never met the bloke, but what resonated with me was Alan Border. I think it was kind of a period of Australian cricket that was probably going through that transition, and he just oozed leadership. It sort of came through the screen that he was a real kind of leader, someone who was stern when he needed to be, super competitive when he needed to be, but also super accountable. But everybody still loved him. So that was, if I remember thinking to myself that if I want to be a leader in life, then that's how I want people to kind of see me, and that's the kind of strength of character that I want to create for myself.
Gotcha.
And then I think thirdly, and I think it kind of defines who you become as a person. They say, we are the company that we keep. I'm really lucky that, I've probably had the same group of friends since I was in primary school, and there were, 5 or 6 or 7 of us, and, none of us have really made that many more friends throughout life, and we've kind of been part of each other's lives our whole lives, and, we're all happy for each other's success, and we all kind of draw on each other's energy, and, I think that those guys have been, kind of there for me all through my life, and I had a really long-term girlfriend who was the same. Like, it was one of those things where the company that you keep over time defines who you are as a person, creates your kind of moral standing. And I feel like everything that I do, even now from a business perspective, and even how I kind of see myself in terms of caring about the clients and caring about the business, is all driven by kind of that moral compass that I sort of created through my early life.
Yeah. It's interesting. Having grown up in the country as well, a lot of my good mates are people I've known since primary, secondary school. I don't know if it's a country thing, and Camden these days is probably not country, but it definitely sets you up well in life to have that, strong base of mates you can kind of rely on. It sounds like you've definitely got that, which is good. Hey, so you're at CBA. It looked like the career was probably flying along pretty well. Sure, they're paying you a good salary, telling you a good story about how important you're going to be, probably getting a bonus. I always look at people that make the jump from big, stable organisations to have a crack at something on why they do it, right? It's a degree of entrepreneur. That's the decisions entrepreneurs make. But why did you make that decision? And was there anything particular about the time you made it?
Yeah, look, I think firstly, the bank was a great training ground. I think the CBA in the late 90s was kind of transitioning itself from being almost a government style organisation where you had a whole bunch of kind of really long tenured kind of people there who were set in their ways, and it was starting to transition itself into a sales culture.
Gotcha.
They kind of brought in, I think it was, I can't remember what they were called, but there was like a sales group who came in and started to get people to ask questions and started to get taglines done and tried to on-sell and what have you.
Gotcha.
I remember looking around at the time and thinking, this place is great and, I'll do okay here, but maybe there's more for me because, I kind of looked at the long tenured people and people were kind of getting promoted as a result of tenure as opposed to talent. And then I also kind of thought to myself, I want to have more conversations with clients. I want to have broader conversations than just trying to, stick money into a colonial product or stick money into a CBA product. I think from my perspective, I kept getting told, how good I was at this, and I'm not sure that was actually ever the truth. But I thought, I'll go out and I'll have a crack, and that's what I did. I got given an opportunity when I went to Moore Stephens, and as difficult as it was, it probably taught me to really kind of love the client and value the relationship, etc. So, I don't know.
Gotcha.
I think the most pivotal, I think there were two really pivotal moments in terms of, kind of moving from CBA to Moore Stephens. I think the first one was that first sort of 6 or 8 months. Like I said before, I'd probably quit almost every day, and if it wasn't for the managing partner at the time telling me to stick it out and give it a crack, I probably would have still been at the bank. I think I still probably would have gone back but I started ringing people out of the phone book. I had one guy one day give me one opportunity to come in. He was a outplacement consultant, so
Gotcha. Good.
a guy who basically, as executives got moved on from roles, he brought them in and either helped them set up for new executive roles or how to set themselves up to go and do like director roles, like NED roles.
Gotcha.
And he was a guy from Melbourne who was just happened to be in Sydney that day. He agreed to meet me. And he sort of said to me, well, you're about 22. Why should I send all my work to you? And I said, his name was Dale Simpson. And I said, oh, Dale. I said, how old are you, Dale? And he goes, I'm 53. I said, mate, well, I'm still working as hard as you by the time I'm your age. Then I've buggered something up in my life. So, and he just kind of laughed and he said, oh, I like your attitude. And then he said something to me which meant nothing from a guy from Sydney. He said, oh, you've got more front than Maya, which like we had Grace Brothers in Sydney back then, right?
Yeah, Victoria, man. It's Maya down in Melbourne, for sure.
But it's obviously, about the Burke Street Mall there in Maya.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, he referred me one client on one day. I got very few skills in life, Travis, but my one thing is probably making complex things sound simple.
Gotcha.
Guy brought to be a reasonably complex kind of share-based REM scheme that he had. I explained it to him in a reasonably kind of simple way. He was new at this organisation, and he goes, "Oh, that's really simple." About a week later, he said, "Hey, do you want to come along and explain it to the entirety of the
Wow.
management team?"
Good lead.
So I did that, and then, lo and behold, I just started to get clients, and then over time, I started to actually get paid to explain to executives how they get paid. So I was almost getting paid to market to these executives.
Gotcha.
And when I look at my client base now, it's still full of a bunch of Macquarie EDs and investment bankers that kind of all grew out of that one opportunity. So,
Wow.
and then I think the second kind of really pivotal time was GFC. We grew our business like 25 or 30% through that period when I think when when some advisors were hiding behind the sofa or not returning calls,
Yeah.
we worked really hard to stay really close to the clients. Like GFC was a really difficult period,
Sure.
right? Like it was death by 1,000 cuts,
Sure.
markets kept falling and falling
Yeah.
and you kind of had, bad news after bad news every day. And, it was off the back of this really kind of, really buoyant period where markets kind of shot the lights out. So everybody was kind of risk on, and then you had that. So it was a really difficult period, right? So we worked really hard to stay really close to the clients, and that cemented those relationships, I think, almost forever.
Yeah.
But we also won work as a result. So, we had clients telling their friends, going, "Well, if your advisor's not, so go talk to my guy. He's there. He's available every minute of every day. He's being really honest, and if it's a shit show, he'll tell you it's a shit show." But it also probably stood us in good stead, and has probably taught us about asset quality. All through that period, it was really important that we held good quality assets that we could, generate revenue through the cycle. And we've kind of, even 14 years later or however long GFC was, we've kind of maintained that. It's like, we just want to make sure we're holding good assets and good quality and, making sure we're always available for the client when things go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I can see how that worked, right? Like the thing, I was working in banking during the GFC and I was client facing at the time, right? Like every day you had to deliver news that was facts, right? But it was, it teaches you deliver bad news quickly and just pick up the phone and have the conversation, because clients understood that the market was going bad, right? What they didn't understand was what's happening in their personal situation. It was ring up and have a chat and saying, well, the world, this is happening in the world. This is implications to you. And this is how I'd think about it. And some genuine advice made a huge difference during that period. So I can see why it worked. And it sort of fits with a lot of things you've said today, right? Personality wise, you're fronting up, right? You're having those conversations, you're working hard. Sort of that was all that was required during the GFC. And a lot of people didn't get that sort of, a lot of advisors didn't quite understand that. And that's why their businesses suffered.
Yeah. Look, I think everyone who comes to us assumes we can count, right? They assumes we know what the tax structures are. They assume that we know the difference between, CBA, BHP and Woolworths.
Yep.
They know that, right? They know. But the bit that wins it for us, I think, and the bit that, and I try and tell this to, anyone who'll listen, is tell the client, go and choose whoever you feel most comfortable working with. Yeah. And I say that to every client, because ultimately at some point we're going to have to deliver bad news, or something's going to go wrong, or something's not going to go the way that we wanted it to go. So, and that's really important. Like, these are long-term relationships, and we have to be acutely aware that we're dealing with people's life savings. So whether the client's got 2 or 3 million, or they've got 30 or 40 million, it's still their life savings. Sure. It's still their legacy. It's still how they figure they're going to fund the rest of their life, but also their kids' life, and leave legacy to the next generations. And we actually have to be kind of sensitive to that, rather than just, again, clients will assume we can count, but we need to make sure that we actually care about what it is that we're trying to produce for them.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode. If you want to learn more about alternative assets, there's a book here you can read, How You Grow Your Wealth with Alternative Assets. Now back to the episode. Just a quick one. So as far as that jump you made from CBA across to effectively where you are now, what advice or tip would you give to someone who's thinking about jumping from the safe environment of a large institution and their big salaries and bonuses to the next jump? What's a tip you'd give them?
Yeah, I think mind the gap, I think is
Yeah.
is actually really important. I would say that, what I was able to achieve would be very hard to do nowadays, given the regulatory environment and given compliance. And, we've spent a lot of years kind of building up the governance and systems and processes. I would suggest that anyone, wherever you go, make sure that the infrastructure exists, make sure, or you've got a good line of sight to that infrastructure, those systems, those processes, the ability to actually get on and do what you're good at, especially, if what you're good at is facing the client, then you need those systems and processes behind you,
For sure.
or you need to be able to take someone along with you to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
So it was a really hard grind having to, be the compliance guy, be the ops guy, be the paraplanning guy, be the advisor, be the investment guy. And I just think in this environment now, it would be almost impossible to do that and be successful. So, and then the other piece is go where you're really valued, like go where your talents are valued. And the third one is, if what you want to be is a client guy and you want to be paid to be a client guy, make sure you go somewhere where they understand that and they have an ability to kind of point you in the right direction and allow you to do that and do all the other kind of bits for you, sort of thing.
Yeah, gotcha. Interesting you say on the systems and process, thinking about it sort of my journey. Advice I got from a guy, Colin Campbell, who you may know out of Melbourne. He basically said, keep the salary as long as you can, right? Keep the salary in your big, on your job where you're working, and set things up in the background. Try and set your system up, set up your process. So when you take the leap, things are there. So it's either a person there, or you've set the systems up, or you think you can get them ready quite quickly. So yeah, it is critical, right? You want to hit the ground running when you start when you make the leap.
And if you intend on taking clients with you or trying to convince clients to go with you, they're going to want to know that, so they'll want to support you, right? Because again, these are very real relationships that you have with very real people, and they'll want to see you succeed. The amount of times I've had conversations with clients who want to see me succeed or are worried about what's going on in my personal life or whatever, these are real relationships. So where you start to tell the clients, any of these advisors who are working for big houses who are going, I'm thinking about hanging my own shingle, they'll want to support them to do that. But they'll also want to know that you're able to actually do it. So yeah, that's good advice.
All in the delivery. Hey, back to Picture Partners. What has worked and what hasn't across the journey? Maybe touch on a couple of things that haven't worked, because that's often where you learn some of your biggest lessons, and then talk through what's sort of your big wins.
Yeah. So I think I think the key to the success really is kind of being sort of true to those initial ideals of, doing the right by the client, and the rest will follow. When we had no clients, as every advisor will attest, you just overservice the ones you've got. So, and I think that same sort of client-centric, service ethic is what's probably what's carried us through. And, we've kind of tried to build the culture around that. So I think that's worked. I think the other thing is that sort of post GFC really pivoting to go from being a financial planning business to being an investment business. And we still do the planning. We still make sure all the right money is in all the right buckets, and we still, make sure super contributions are done and pensions are paid and all that. But our real value add is the investment management stuff, and we make that pretty clear. When we pivoted to that and started to work really hard on, making sure that we had good investment opportunities for people and, good things that they can invest in, and working harder than just putting them into, broad-based ETFs or whatever, we ended up being able to attract a client type. And that client type was always going to be more commercially beneficial for us than, perhaps the mass affluent world was ever going to be. So, excuse me. That was actually really important in terms of what worked really well. And then I think the other thing is as we got bigger, I said before that, I now wear two hats. Once upon a time I wore 6 or 7. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, I brought in a GM and a head of ops, and our business has basically doubled in the last 4 years as a result of that. So, bringing in really good people to do all the bits that you don't want to do, that will always do it better than what you can do it, is really important. So now from a systems, infrastructure, sales force, governance perspective, the business is better than it's ever been. It's lower risk than it's ever been. It's more profitable than it's ever been. So, get good people around you and make sure you reward them well enough and make sure they understand they're actually part of the success.
Gotcha.
Maybe the bits that haven't done so well, or we haven't been, we're 20 years or 21 years into this journey, and we do only still have 4 advisors. We've got 4 advisors doing almost $4 billion of assets. We haven't been great at really scaling it up. I kind of look at our competitors in our market, Coda, Crestone, Scala, sort of Morgan Stanley, and they seem to have this ability to kind of go and recruit and drive recruitment and get new advisors in to have big books of clients. We've struggled with that. We've struggled, and whether it's we've struggled to get them in culturally because our expectations are too high, or whether we haven't paid enough, or whether we haven't had the equity model for it. So certainly over the next 2 or 3 years, our real focus is to kind of go from the sort of 4 senior advisors and 2 junior advisors that we've got now to trying to bring in 5 or 6 new kind of senior guys. We've sort of tried to tweak our REM schemes, and we're putting an ESOP in place, and we really want to kind of grow our advisor base because we've got fantastic, we've got a great platform for it. So we've got great systems, and we think we're a great place to work, and we've got great market appeal, and we've got lots of people kind of banging on the door wanting to be clients. We just need people who can service those clients, but we need them. We need them to come in and have the same ideals that we've got. We need them to have that same kind of client-centric, client service ethic that we do. And, what I found in our industry, in the nicest possible way, good guys have got good jobs.
Sure.
But there's lots of people who are probably a little bit overpaid and a little bit undersmart. So in our world. So, we want to go and find really good ones. We'll grow a few of our own. But we probably haven't been that successful at doing that. So that's certainly one thing that, we've got a goal on over the next couple of years.
Gotcha. Well, you've got the platform, right? You got the brand, reputation. You're well known in the marketplace. It seems a logical next step.
Yeah.
Sure, it'll go well. Hey, now back to a little bit of personal thoughts on things. How do you define success? How are you achieving it? And touch on maybe personal and workplace, and then some tips on how others can. So sort of your views on success, how you're achieving it, and then some tips for others.
Yeah. So, I think from a personal point of view, success is happiness. I think it's, being fulfilled in what you're doing and enjoying what you're doing. I think no value putting your feet on the floor every morning and kind of going, I don't want to do this, or this is a grind, or this feels like a chore, or whatever it is. And, we're really aware that we go to work to finance the rest of our lives. But if you don't enjoy what you're doing, if you don't get some level of kind of, intellectual stimuli out of what you're doing, if you don't enjoy the client conversations, then don't do it. Go and do something else. So that, I think from the business's perspective, for us, success is having good long-term recurring revenue paying clients. We're lucky enough now that we're mature enough that 90% of our revenue or 95% of our revenue is ongoing client revenue. We think that makes us a really sustainable, successful business. And also given the way we kind of, sort of treat the clients and how, we try and become part of their world and part of their family, we think that the clients will support us through, periods as well. I think that makes it sustainable. It makes it valuable. It makes it a good place to work. And then I think just, the other thing that sort of defines success is that over time you need to be successful enough that you make room for other parts of your life. We were talking before about, you wanting to have been a hobby farmer and enjoying kind of, pushing posts into ground and pulling fence wire out and all that sort of stuff. You need to you need to be successful enough over time to be able to make time for that stuff. Otherwise, what was the point?
Yeah, I agree.
So, I've got things that I like to do outside of work, and I've got young kids, and it's important that the work-life balance piece is right.
Yeah.
I've never been a believer in the kind of, work smarter, not harder. Yeah, work smarter, but work hard as well,
Yeah.
because then all the other things are far more fun as a result.
Yeah, for sure. Very good. Now, top tips for those looking to level up in business.
I think so. Number one, I think you absolutely kind of have to know your market, like know your addressable market, know what it is that you're actually trying to achieve. I would say that my level of success or revenue growth or whatever changed probably 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to, rather than try and be everything to everyone, I took a view that, I'm going to start to tell the market exactly what I am and what I want to be. I want to be a high net wealth, ultra high net wealth guy, a guy that looks after clients with kind of 5 to 100 mil of assets. We want to be investment guys, and we want to be relationship guys. And that's the sort of work that started to come. I think, being really kind of unequivocal about who you are, what you are, how you want to do it, is really important. And secondly, my view on everything is, kind of bite off more than you can chew, and then kind of chew like crazy, and then just be super honest about it. Like if a client rings me and says, "Hey, what do you think about this?" If I don't know the answer, I'll just go, "I don't know."
Yeah.
But I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
And then it's incumbent on me to work hard to go and either find the answer or come back to them and find someone that does know the answer.
Yeah. It's so funny, isn't it? A lot of people think they got to have all the answers.
Yeah,
I mean, often it comes with maturity. You realise the person on the end of the phone is probably just like you, just wants an answer to the question and doesn't expect you to be an expert. And you say, "Oh, mate, I don't know."
Yeah.
But I'll definitely come back to you. That's the key.
Yeah.
As a good sort of relationship person, just come back when you can find out.
Yeah. Look, honesty goes a long way. Honesty, kindness, and care go a long way, and people will absolutely value that and they'll respect it. Because again, like I said before, the clients will assume I can count. They'll assume that I know how to put a portfolio together.
Yeah.
They'll assume I understand how risk works. But what they'll really value is the fact that I actually give a shit about them and their situation.
Yeah, totally agree. Hey, if you're enjoying this, please leave a review. It's really important to us. We're trying to build momentum around education, and better reviews will get more people coming and listening. Now, a little one left field. What advice would you give yourself back when you were a bank teller? If you were to give yourself 1 or 2 points on how you'd take the next step in life, what would it have been?
Oh, I think back then it would have been try and have more fun. I think I got too serious about
did you?
life.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Got too serious about life too quickly. No, I think, I was probably, at the time, and I'm probably always, I'm probably a little bit ADHD most of the time, but I was always kind of in a rush for the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step. So I think looking back now, I look at the kind of journey and it's, a reasonably interesting one, but I wish I'd kind of enjoyed that journey a little more, because every time I made a step, I kind of forgot about what kind of got me there and just kept looking kind of forward. So I kind of, I've kind of got to 44 or whatever and kind of now sort of, almost ponder a little bit and wished I'd kind of, enjoyed that journey just a little bit.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then I think the other thing I probably would have told myself at the time, if I'm honest, is maybe to travel a little bit more.
Yeah.
There's been some good outcomes in terms of the fact that I didn't travel much and, worked really hard and what have you. But I think some of those things that my friends experienced and, I probably didn't. So
Gotcha.
I think there is, I think there's learning and there's education and there's, education by osmosis. And I think, the university of life is just as important as kind of working really hard and trying to put money in the bank. So.
Gotcha. Well, you've clearly got a lot right where you are today, but obviously you don't have the next 40 years to catch up.
Yeah. It's interesting. I remember getting to 20 and never wanting to learn anything ever again. Felt like I knew everything.
Yeah.
Never wanted to open another book, just wanted to earn money. I got to about 40 and found learning fascinating again. So, went off to Harvard and did a Harvard Business School course and went to MIT and did a course there. And learning is fascinating. I wish I could tell my 20-year-old self
Yeah.
when I had probably more brain cells and more time and more energy. That learning is fascinating. So, but now at this age, I still find learning fascinating, and I find the intellectual stimuli around assets and talking to PE guys and how they find capital, how they find line of sight to exits, and how they put deals together and how they use their filters. And I find all that really kind of interesting.
For sure.
I wish I'd kind of stopped and found it interesting 20 years ago, because I'd be way smarter now. So
I mean, that is the fun stuff, right? Looking at trades, looking at investments, understanding what makes them tick, and then you can work back and think, I now understand the investment. How would it apply to my client base? It may not apply, right? But at least you know. You've done the work.
And that's exactly the process that we go through. Like, we obviously have a very formal due diligence process before we bring any of these private assets in front of clients. But that's virtually the exact thing that we do. Understand the asset, understand the risks, understand how it's going to generate returns, work out what the impairment risk is. We really don't want to buy assets that are going to turn to dust for clients. And then once we like it, are comfortable with it, then put our mind to, right, who does it fit for? What type of client does it fit for? And, I really kind of enjoy that process.
Yeah,
so.
Sounds good. Now, a little bit on the philosophical side, but what legacy are living and leaving?
That's pretty deep, isn't it? What legacy am I living and wanting to leave? Look, I think from a, certainly from a business point of view, I said before that we really want to grow. Part of wanting to grow is actually wanting to leave a legacy, is wanting to be able to look back and look at a business that, Martin, my sort of business partner from the start, and I sort of started with a desk and a phone book, and we can kind of look back and kind of see that we've brought a whole bunch of people through, and they've been able to take on equity, and they've been able to kind of carry on a whole bunch of those client ideals. I think, we really like, when advisors think, I'm a good advisor, I want to, kind of be my own boss somewhere. I want to go and find a really great place to work. I want them to think of us. And when, kind of a client's sitting there and he's got, he's got a few $1 million in the bank or whatever, and he's kind of reading the paper and he thinks to himself, I really should go and talk to someone, I want them to think of us.
Yep.
So, I'd like us to kind of get to the point where we're able to do that. From a personal legacy point of view, I want my kids to be good human beings. I want to try and, I want people to see me as a good human being.
Gotcha.
Over time. I don't know, like, I don't know. I'm not sure I've ever, thought too much about.
A bit of a left field one.
Yeah,
You don't want one of the kids to be the next Alan Border.
Yeah.
As a cricket lover.
My young bloke's not a bad cricketer, actually. So
great.
he's you do your best not to live vicariously through your kids, but you can't help you can't help it at times. So you never want to be that parent kind of yelling from the sidelines, but you do have to kind of stop yourself at different times and kind of go, shut up. Like, you don't want to be that person. But
we've all done it.
I don't know.
That's all right. No, it's good. It's good.
I think, in terms of, I want to try and create careers for people as well. Like, I think that's the other thing. Like, we've got a couple of young guys coming through our business at the moment. We've got a new advisor in our business, a guy called Peter Neville, who's actually a test cricketer,
Gotcha.
Coming into his sort of second career. People like that. I'm really driven to kind of help them create careers for themselves in this world, because they've got all the right fundamentals, they've got the right drivers. We just need to teach them how to be investment guys, and they'll do really well. And I'm really driven by helping people kind of build their careers, and whether they're advisors or whether they're client service people or whether they're key account people, really driven to helping people kind of build careers for themselves and get the best out of themselves.
Yeah, I think that's critical as you get later in your career. Just the simple tips and mentoring you can do can make a huge difference. So I think that's it's a pretty important point to be running with.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go into some quick fire questions. Now you've talked about your first job, but I'm going to ask you about your first job before the first job, if there was one. So tell us about that.
Yeah, there was. So I worked at Sinclair's news agency in Camden. Bit of a rite of passage for most kids in Camden. I think about half the kids of my age in Camden worked there. I was the guy that kind of brought the papers in off the street in the morning, and then I worked on the sales desk at Tandy. There was like a little Tandy retail outlet inside the news agency. So, pretended to know how UHF and all that sort of stuff worked. I didn't. I was making it up, but,
Right, you're in sales.
Yeah, that's right. So,
Yeah, good on you. What motivates you most as a person?
I don't know what motivates me most as a person. Winning, I think.
Yeah, gotcha.
I think in the right way, without that sounding kind of, too ostentatious. Winning really motivates me.
Yeah.
Finding the answer and kind of doing better than what I kind of did before.
Yep.
So
I think it's important to be competitive. What are your tips for driving long-term wealth? Tough one, given your career and what you do for a job. But if you can nail it in a couple of sentences.
buy good quality assets.
Yep.
That's it really. Like, buy them through the cycle, keep buying them and always buy to quality.
Yeah,
Try not to try not to kind of get caught up in short-term fads. Try not to get caught up in, kind of emotion. Buy good quality assets, so if you're looking at equity stuff with good balance sheets, good earnings, good management, if you're buying real assets, things that aren't going to turn to dust.
Yeah, gotcha. This one overlaps, but what are the biggest mistakes you see people make in building wealth and why?
Yeah, it's myopia really. It's kind of that kind of short-term, I think everybody in any investment decision they make, doesn't matter how young they are, needs to almost take a 50-year view. So, so I think it's being really short-termism. I also think it's kind of listening to too many people and not doing any critical thinking of your own, back to kind of Mrs. Chen back in year 11 and year 12, absolutely take on other people's thoughts, but create your own opinion. So, the other thing is, if it sounds too good to be true, it absolutely is. I think everything in life is based on good underlying fundamentals.
Yeah.
So, not understanding those fundamentals is probably the biggest mistake.
Gotcha. And I know one of my, coming from Warrigal and all my old mates, you just never listen to any of their tips on investing. What are your mates like from Camden?
Yeah, they're not too bad. I look after a couple of them now. A couple of them done actually reasonably well in life. So, there's kind of a reasonable range of respect there. And when they don't listen to me, I feel a mate of mine who's, a smash repairer and now he does a few other things. It's like, man, I'm not going to try and bang the dents out of the doors myself. I'm going to send it to you. Why is it any different? Like, why wouldn't you listen to me on my view on CBA or BHP or whether a property is good or not? I actually do this for a living. People pay me to do this. So it's kind of no different, right? So, I've got a mate who builds modular buildings for a living. Yeah. But I cannot weld a frame together as well as you. What makes you think that you can pick investments as well as me?
So common sense, isn't it?
So,
good on you. When you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
so I've got 2 youngish kids, so fair bit of time with them. I spend a fair bit of time standing in the sun, watching my son play a few different forms of cricket. I've got a good group of friends that I like to try and see as much as I can, and as most people know, I'm still pretty heavy into motorsport.
True.
So I've got a couple of race cars and I race in a few different series and really enjoy it. Really enjoy the kind of competitive nature of it, and the respite that it brings. And it's good fun. The older I get, the more I realise you've got to kind of have that outlet to kind of really express that kind of competitive side. And I think it's like anything. The better you get, the more fun it is. The more fun it is, the more you want to do it, I think. So, but my family are really important as well. I just want to make sure that everything that I'm doing in life is kind of, in the end, for them, really. So,
gotcha. Appreciate your time. And listeners, if you're interested in connecting with Charlie, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. If you'd like to find out more about Pitcher Partners, check out their website, pitcher.com.au. But thanks for your time, Charlie. Really appreciate it. It's good to have a chat.
Thanks, Travis. Much appreciated, mate.
Hey, if you're enjoying this, please leave a review. It's really important to us. We're trying to build momentum around education, and better reviews will get more people coming and listening.